Peer pressure. Pressure. Peer pressure.
And
Why did you look at me like that?
we're live. Honestly, I'm questioning the "and we're live" thing. Sometimes I don't like it.
I mean,
And we're live.
you've done it 37 episodes so far, so you
Might
can't
as well
really
keep
change
going.
it now.
Welcome back to another episode of Peer Pressure. It's your host,
Peer pressure.
Brando in the building. I'm here today with my co-host, my boy, Damisito, a.k.a. Latino Nelly, a.k.a. Shaking Your Belly.
That's fantastic.
And we have a very special guest with us today. We're in her house.
Woo.
Everybody, please welcome to the Peer Pressure stage, Katy Wimberly. Did I say that correctly?
Huh?
Wimberly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll feed you, baby bird.
Sorry, we had. There we go. I was looking. I knew we had.
Good job, Dom.
I knew we
Good
had an
job.
applause one somewhere, and I just didn't remember.
Then maybe
what
I
it was.
thought you forgot we were like recording or like I just like, oh yeah, we're going.
I was gonna try them all out.
Oh my god. But basically with this episode we wanted to so a little background on Katy, if I could just introduce you really quickly.
Yeah.
You are Dominic's aunt. Very true.
There, see,
Family,
Found the right
familial,
one.
Good
familial
job. Good job.
connections.
Mhm.
And you're currently studying astronomy.
Yes.
He kept on saying when we were talking
I
about
said
it
it one
before.
time. I said it one time.
He kept on saying astrology
No,
the whole time.
astronomy. Astrology. That's how I remembered it. I was like, astrology. Astrology.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's fantastic.
You're currently studying astronomy at UC Irvine.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to get some background. I think that's really interesting. I know Dom thinks that's really interesting. And we wanted to get some background on your experience doing that and why astronomy is important.
Yeah.
So if you could, just open up with that. Like, why do you think it is important? Or what is it actually? Just get a base level
Okay.
understanding for everyone.
So this is going to be the most vague thing you've ever heard, but it'll encompass it. Basically, anything you study that's right on the other side of the atmosphere and beyond, that's astronomy.
Really?
Yeah. So like studying the sun, that's astronomy. Even so,
The sun is a star.
yes. So we're all on the same page. It's a star. Even like the astronauts, on the space station, that's so there's a lot of engineering that goes into that, but it's still like astro engineering and
Astro-engineering.
we can add
Astro to
astro onto
anything?
basically astrobiology, astrochemistry.
So anything
Yeah.
that's out in space, you
Yeah.
just put an astro in front of it, and then
Yep.
all of a sudden,
And we're good.
That's it.
We're good. That's it. That's astronomy.
how did you first get in? Because this is something that I actually don't know. Because all of a sudden,
okay.
I knew you're interested in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden one day you're like, oh yeah, I'm studying astronomy, and I was like, I didn't even know that was an interest. So like how. I feel like in school too, like astronomy is not like you have the
Yeah,
basics
they
like
don't-
science, you have physics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I didn't learn anything. I mean, you like one chapter in your science book.
Yeah.
All I remember was like earth science, biology. Like I didn't really
I studied sedimentary rocks so much. I know
Yes.
all about sedimentary rocks. Know nothing about astronomy.
That's hilarious.
Exactly.
So how did that that interest where did it come from?
Yeah. So in like grades, like elementary and middle school, like I liked astronomy. I liked space. Let's be honest. I like space. I didn't know a damn what astronomy was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone did.
No. And then in high school, I really got into math. And I told
Oh, I do remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I told my parents, like, I'm going to study math in college. And they're like, what are you going to do with that? I'm like,
What are you gonna do with math?
yeah.
It's crazy because everyone wants you to be good at math. Like you need to be good at math.
Yeah.
But then, like, what are you gonna do with
Exactly.
You know what
Exactly. And I was like, what do you mean do? Can I just
Yeah.
study
Can I
it?
just
Yeah.
do math problems all
I
day?
just want to so because they were like, what kind of career are you gonna get with that? And I had no idea. So that's why I was like, well, I can be an actress because that's a job.
It seems like it has a title on it, so it's a job.
Yeah, like that's a thing you can do.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I went, but still, like I still enjoyed like space and super nerdy Star Trek. Me and your mom used
Yeah,
to
I
watch.
know.
Yeah,
My
all
mom's a
kinds of.
huge sci-fi
Yeah,
fan.
I don't know any of the Star Treks, but are you like a next generation or like what?
Voyager.
See,
Voyager.
I don't know.
Voyager.
I know that people
So,
know there's different seasons.
So Voyager is the only season that or only like Yeah, I guess no, not season. What are they? Series.
Oh, yeah,
Series.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the only series that has a female captain.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And the only series that has a researcher as the captain.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, right?
Who's usually
then
like the
what-
captain?
Captain Kirk.
Yeah,
Right.
he was like, I think he's just like a officer.
guy.
Yeah, like he
Ah.
didn't really have like a thing. Some of them are like engineers or
Oh, I did not know
in
that.
the medical. Yeah, so the main ones we'll get into it. The main ones are you can do medical, like there's the medical core, there's the engineering core, and then there's like the science or research.
This is
core.
all in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I
No,
don't know.
yeah,
Sorry, when you're
this
talking
is-
about it, I was like, oh,
No,
this is.
this is
We
great.
moved on to something else. I was
No,
like-
no.
People
No.
love Star Trek for its like
Oh.
realistic
Yeah,
approach
yeah,
to
there's a
like sci-fi.
whole- yeah,
That's
there's a
pretty cool.
whole
I never
thing.
knew any.
And different like colors they have, even the whole.
Okay,
so
that
we-
makes sense.
Yeah, and because it's military-ish, but
Mm-hmm.
you know it's peaceful. Like so, Starfleet is peaceful.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Just a fleet.
it's just the
No war fleet.
no war fleet. But there's everyone in the show has a different insignia, like military.
Oh.
In the so
Oh,
every little
right.
detail is like they're on point with
That makes
it.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen
Yeah.
the different colors that they wear.
Yeah,
That's like their
yeah.
different branch or
Yeah,
whatever. Okay,
basically.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that like your first? Like, could you attribute your love of Star Trek to
Yeah,
astronomy?
yeah, no. Oh no, so I attribute my love of astronomy to Star Trek.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's-
like hard. Yeah.
I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of people who are getting in or who are in like astronomy or those fields, it was either like Star Trek or Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's like how like everyone, the stars, and all of a sudden, because like, I don't know how else you would get into that type of
No,
stuff.
it's tough.
Yeah.
So it started with Star Trek, and then
Yeah.
how did you? But then you didn't necessarily pursue it right away, right?
I enjoyed all of that stuff. And then when I was doing acting, like I got to the point where it's like, okay, you have to like get a real job. You have to like do something with your life. I realized that I didn't like I enjoy it, but I'm not I don't want to do it every day.
What?
Acting.
Acting.
Oh, acting.
Yeah,
Got it,
like
got
I
it,
didn't
got it.
want to do it every day.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to like I got to the point in my like acting skill where I would have had to really push myself and like
do it every
and
day.
do
Yeah.
it and be, do that like vulnerable, I'm going to have to work really hard at this.
Yeah.
And it was just not like, I was like, meh.
Wow. So
I
was
don't
that
know
was
what
that a
to do.
big moment when you're like you thought you wanted to do something for like a
Yeah.
long period of time, and then all of a sudden you get to like kind of the breaking point where it's like I'm gonna have to start getting really serious about this.
Yeah.
Was that like? How did that feel? I couldn't imagine like you thought like this is what I want to do. Then you got to that point, you're like, wow, I really don't like this that much.
It was, so I think it was not as scary as a lot of people think it would be.
Uh-huh.
I got there and I remember having a conversation with Chris Strompolis.
Uh-huh.
So his uncle,
Yes.
his uncle, I call him Uncle
The
Chris.
whole family tree.
The whole,
Just-
he's everyone's uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's into like acting and
Mm.
screenwriting and entertainment kind of in general. And I remember having a conversation with him where he was like, yeah, you just have to be raw on stage. And I was like, nope.
Like no, I'm
No
out.
thanks.
All right, that's it.
See ya.
How did you know you were at that point where that's when you started like needed to open up more like in your acting career?
So it was like the roles. So I did like community theater. So
Got
the
it.
roles that I was getting, I could tell that like I'm faking it at this point. Like there's some roles where you're acting and there's some roles where you can just kind of do whatever and be
Yeah.
cute or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's roles where you have to like
Embody
be,
the
and
character.
like actually be vulnerable.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yep. Yeah, and so I had one of those roles where I really had to like be open and vulnerable with the person I was acting. So I was like the ingenue and the like star of the show.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
I would have had to be like, and not even in like a sexual way, but just
Uh-huh.
literally like
Right.
it's like a breaking up situation, and so
Oh.
it's that rough,
And you had to
like,
go
raw.
to that
Yeah,
place.
I would have had to go, and not just
that
go
doesn't
to that
sound
place
fun.
personally, but
Uh-huh.
go to that place with this other person. And I don't like people.
Yeah. And you're like having to have a relationship with someone in
that,
like acting.
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
yeah.
weird.
And not only the character, but then the person also. And I'm like, this is too
Oh,
much
yeah,
for me.
yeah.
This is, yeah. So making the decision to like not do acting anymore wasn't hard.
Mhm.
What was kind of scary was like, okay, so now I'm like, I was like 24, 25 at the
Yeah.
time. And I was like, I have to do something with
Like,
myself.
and it's like now,
Yeah.
now what?
Yeah.
But because I had been working full time still, and I was going to school, and I was in the army, so I had plenty of like security to take time and figure that out.
What was the process like going from like, so after the period of like acting isn't what I want to do, how was the like that period of getting like into astronomy? Like, what was it like? I like this. Let me try it out, or was it like full fledged into it? Like, what was that like?
So yeah, it was a little more on that the first one. So I knew that I'd always liked school, and because I was in community college, I was at Mount Sac. I wanted
Shout
to
Mount
just
Sac, great school. That's a great school.
It is.
Both my parents are alumni from Mount Sac.
My mom went to Mount Sac.
Yeah.
Also.
Everyone.
And my sister goes to Mount Sac.
Wow.
Mount Sac just runs in the
Dom,
family.
you're just not the cool one.
I know. I'm the only one.
What'd you do?
I know.
Yeah. So I like enjoyed learning in academia, and so I was like, I'm gonna do this like school thing. Let me figure out something that I want to do within this umbrella of like school.
Right.
Yeah. And so I actually I was taking an anthropology class at the time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love anthropology also.
That's
It's cool.
yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones.
Very
I just
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I kind of looked into doing that, but a lot of anthropologists, like that's a lot of field work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a homebody.
That's so.
I feel you. I
This
totally
guy is
feel
the
that.
biggest homebody, and it's so.
It's like, what can I do that I can do by myself? I don't have to go out. Like, I can just do it in my room.
It's so and it's so like frustrating for.
God.
I don't even consider myself like someone who goes out like all the time. But if like I'm like you want to
I
go?
feel like you go out a lot.
I don't go out that much. I would consider myself like a homebody
Yeah.
as well, but just not as big as Brandon.
It's a lie.
Because I'll like be like, hey, you trying to go to this thing? He's like, no, I'm just trying to stay home. And it's like I can't be mad at that because I understand, but it's like,
For like twins, that's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because nope.
It's funny how like a lot of your like own personal like likes and dislikes shape like your career.
Yeah.
Like
Which
you're
is
like
good, which is a great thing. I
Right.
feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
because you're
No,
like
that's
you
true.
knew yourself. And you're like, oh, I'm not. This isn't. I don't like people. I don't like being like feeling these emotions. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
I don't like going out that much. I can't do that. That's interesting. Like you had a really strong knowledge of self. I feel like
Yeah.
going in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I like not whittling it away, but I was like, anthropology is great, but I don't really want to do that. And then because of Star Trek and like I was deep into it, like
At that point in time, you're watching a couple
Watching
episodes a
it.
day.
Yeah, literally.
Hello.
Right?
Like, with the-
Yeah.
He has a
Yeah,
tattoo.
yeah.
The Vulcan
to,
salute.
to the point where we did. So my boyfriend at the time, you remember Zen?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So my boyfriend at the time was like a huge nerd.
Yeah.
And all of his friends, we were deep in it. We did Star Trek like pen and paper, like Dungeons and Dragons. Star
Oh, wow.
Trek.
Wow.
Yes.
They have a
Yes.
Dungeons and
Cool.
Dragons Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
You can do
wow.
like so the big name is called pen and paper, and there's like
Oh.
yeah.
I thought it was just straight
so
up
dungeon. Yeah, that's like a specific one.
Wow.
That's all mythical.
Wow, I had no idea
Oh.
that Dungeons and
Oh, it
Dragons
is.
fell under.
I didn't know that it was
Yeah.
under. I thought it was just its own game, and then there were. Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
So there's a pen and paper Star Trek.
Yes.
I feel like you have to have an extreme knowledge of Star Trek to play
Oh yeah.
a
Of all
pen
the
and
things-
paper Star Trek.
Of all the things that our minds could have gotten blown on so far in this podcast.
I know it's
Yeah,
it's the
sorry.
pen and paper Star Trek.
Yes.
So you were really deep into the Star Trek.
Yeah, and it was through that I realized like this is also, and I guess we'll probably get to this like representation thing,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't realize that you could be like a scientific researcher until I played Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow.
That is
Really?
yes.
That's cool.
That is for because wait, a lot of those professions that like aren't really common, like a scientific researcher.
Yeah.
Like, how do you
yeah.
hear about those?
Yeah.
Like it's like almost by chance,
Yeah.
or you know somebody, or your family's a scientific
Exactly.
researcher.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you
exactly.
found it through.
Yeah, through that. I mean, and through like Star Trek too, like realizing that this was an actual job. But you can watch TV forever and not put it together that like what they're doing in the TV is something that you can do too.
I can be just like
Right.
it was. So you're like, I want to be like Star Trek.
Yeah, basically.
I'm really starting to appreciate all the Star Trek.
I know.
Like-
I haven't seen one episode ever.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I've only seen them. I've tried to watch some of the original series,
Oh yeah.
and then I also have seen the movies, which I really like. With like,
Oh yeah. The later ones,
the
the
new
like
movies.
Yeah, the
newest
new
ones.
ones.
Yeah.
With-
Those
I
are
forgot
great.
his
So
name.
if we're a beginner Star Trek fan, Which one do you
Yeah,
suggest?
like what do you suggest?
I think Next Generation.
A lot of people
Yeah.
vouch for Next Generation.
Yeah,
like, they're
it's like the super solid. So it's still super true to Star Trek,
Uh-huh.
but you don't have like the original one has that kind of like 60s, 70s campy TV thing going on. Yeah, which like if you're not into it, you're like,
It's like hit and miss for some people, I feel like.
I can't remember the one that has Captain Archer. I don't know. I'm blanking on the name of it.
Not a real fan. Just kidding.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Exposed.
But that one is super 90s, super nice. So again, like you have to enjoy like 90s TV.
I feel like I would. I feel like that would be one I would.
90s is
You
hot right now.
probably- Yeah,
90s are hot.
yeah.
So
But TNG is like a solid.
When did that one come out? In the 90s?
I think it was in the 90s too.
Okay, like,
but it's just
cool.
not that like heavy night. You know that like.
It's not dated.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it holds up really well.
Cool. If it's on,
And
I have to
also,
check it out. I know now. I kind of want to check it out.
Jean-Luc Picard, isn't it? So.
No idea who that is.
What?
I am the worst with actors.
too many
and-
Jean-Luc names that I've heard.
I'm so bad with actor and actresses' names.
Okay, he's an older British actor.
Oh, okay.
So.
Do you know who that is?
No. Is he like?
I'm the worst with that stuff.
You.
I never.
sorry.
It
Even
is-
actors
It's
now.
also like it's I'm dating myself.
It's okay. It's okay.
So
okay.
from the Star Trek, how did you like? Because now you're in a PhD program, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so
UC Irvine, Anteaters.
Yeah.
Eater Nation.
Oh
Isn't
yeah,
that their thing?
Zot.
Zaza.
I know. It hurts me.
So what? How did you find? Because I know when you go into a PhD, it's a very specific, like
Oh yeah.
very like. How did that happen? And what is your specific area or
Okay.
field of research?
Yeah. So once I figured out that like I wanted to do astronomy,
Mm-hmm.
then I literally like Googled like astronomy undergrad, whatever.
I've done that. I was
Very-
psychology with my major.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
valid thing to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And went to Cal State Long Beach kind of because again like Mount Sac, it's the family school.
Oh.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
like
Wow, it's in our
everyone went
it's in our
there.
lineage.
Mount
Yeah.
Sac,
Yeah.
always.
So I went there and realized like through like internet searches that most people, there's very few astronomy departments that give bachelor's degrees.
What do they
Ooh.
usually give?
Doctorates or masters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So there's some. So most people that most astronomers probably went to a physics and astronomy department.
Yeah.
And so like my doctorate will actually be in physics, but all of my research is astronomy.
Because physics and
Okay.
astronomy are like this,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah.
you basically can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah, well, you can't really
Well, I mean, you-
have astronomy without physics.
But you can have physics by itself.
Yeah.
Physics is, I mean, yeah.
Physics
Yeah,
is like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Astronomy is like tied into physics.
Yeah. So it didn't start out that way because like history lesson.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you. Thank you. We need this.
Astronomy started out as literally like counting the stars and like kind
Could
of
you
categorizing
imagine just like
stars.
one?
I know.
Yeah,
two,
Like, writing it down.
Well, I already counted that one.
And you
Yeah.
I can start over.
Yeah. And like paying attention to like solar eclipses and lunar eclipses and this kind of stuff. And there's physics in that, but it's a lot more of kind of just charting what's going on. Where astrophysics is literally like, how are we taking these basic physics principles and laying astronomy on top of them, which is done in like all physics subfields are the same way. So if there's something like condensed matter, they basically build one of the big things that is done in condensed matter is batteries.
Oh, really?
So a lot of battery advances in battery technology comes out of the condensed matter field. And it's the same thing. So it's just these physics concepts where they lay like, battery knowledge on top
Oh, wow.
of.
Interesting.
I did not know that.
I had no idea that
yeah.
that
You
was
could
that
apply
either.
all of that to
I
physics.
know. I
or-
did not know that
Wow.
either.
Yeah. So there's a super nerdy. There's like this meme that's like
A science meme?
Yeah,
Yes.
science memes. Math is the beginning. Like math is everything,
Uh-huh.
right? And then physics is the next thing where it's everything. And then you just like move on down from there. And then there's like
gets
at the
smaller.
end, it's like biology or something. Like, this isn't, that's,
It doesn't matter. It's whatever.
It doesn't matter.
No, so making our own science memes. So what's your? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So when you went in for your PhD,
Yeah.
like what was like? I don't really know how the PhD anything works, like getting your PhD. I know Dom was trying to get his PhD at one point.
Woo!
But
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to call you out or anything. I was just like, but I mean, like, I don't know what the process is and like how, like, what you study to
Okay.
do that. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
at all.
yeah. And it's different for different fields, obviously, but for like most physical sciences and definitely physics and astronomy, most people, you get your undergrad in whatever, and then you apply directly for a PhD program. So you don't have to do a master's first in physics and astronomy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you got your you got your undergrad in astronomy or
In physics.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it.
So I got it in physics. Long Beach is like a teaching school, so they really focus on teaching and not as much research.
Cool.
So I didn't get a lot. There's only like one astronomy professor at I think there's two now, but I didn't do a lot of I didn't do a lot of research or astronomy research at Long Beach, and I didn't get a lot of classes in astronomy, but I did a whole ton of physics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did. I joined this program called CalBridge, and it's a bridge program. So there's a lot of these programs now that'll take underrepresented minorities in STEM and that are in undergraduate programs and help bridge them into graduate programs, into like
Shout out
PhD
McNair
programs.
scholars,
Yeah,
alumni of McNair scholars. Didn't work with me though, but it's
I know.
we tried. We tried.
Yeah. So I did one of those, and that gave me a lot of astronomy research experience, and that's what helped me get into the PhD program.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so now, what's your like focus on in your PhD program?
Yeah, so I do observational galaxy evolution.
That honestly, that sounds so cool.
I need another one.
That sounds so cool. You could just flex. Like, oh, what do you do? Like at a party? I observe galaxies. Like no big.
Wait,
deal.
say the whole thing again.
Observational galaxy evolution.
Wow, I couldn't even remember after the first time you said it. I was gonna say it again. Observational galaxy evolution.
Yeah.
So that's like, so explain to the listeners what that is.
This isn't rocket science.
Just to the listeners, because me and Brandon already know what that is.
Right.
But
Oh
for
yeah,
the
we
listeners,
already got it. Yeah.
So galaxies, right? Like Milky Way, we live in a galaxy.
yes.
And there's a ton
What?
of them.
Whoa.
And so the evolution of it, it's not like we think of evolution as how like species change. In evolution in the galactic kind of concept is more of just studying how they're born to how they die.
Right.
Yeah. So I focus on the dying part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I focus on dying.
Oh,
I focus on the extinction of stars and galaxies.
Yeah, but basically. Yeah. So but I do it observationally, which means like we use telescopes and all this kind of stuff to collect the data. And I actually almost not more than that, but I'm a little closer to like the interface between theory and observations. So like the project that I'm finishing right now, I use these simulations of the universe. Yeah, literally.
Sorry, I just can't. It's like what?
Universe simulators.
Oh my god. Like,
Yeah. So I use those and observations that have already been taken and like kind of match them up.
okay.
So
wow.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's a lot like that we can't see and that we just don't know out there. So with these simulations, we can kind of patch the holes in a way
Oh, okay.
to be able
Got
to have
it,
a more
got
like
it.
holistic view of what's going on.
Wow. And just a really specific question, like you said, you use telescopes and the tools and stuff.
Yeah.
What's the difference between like a telescope you would see like everyone else
I can
using
see
and,
him
like,
starting to laugh
and
already.
the telescopes you're using? Like,
So the biggest thing is that the telescopes that I use, so optical astronomy number one. So the difference is you can have like an optical telescope, which literally takes light that we see and it collects it and whatever. But then there's like radio telescopes, and those only collect radio waves. Or
got
like
it, got it,
X-ray
got it.
telescopes. So every different
wow.
part of like the spectrum of energy we can collect.
Wow.
I know the.
Didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
I know like one of the bigger ones that like just came out was like or not just came out, but like it was like a big deal was the gravitational waves.
Oh yeah.
Like the baby
that's-
picture of the universe.
Yeah.
Can you
Wait. There's they found what the universe looked like when it started, or what? Is that
Do you want to? I could explain it, but I feel like I wouldn't do that well.
So we think the Big Bang, right? That's kind of where you're thinking that's where the universe started. And so the Big Bang happened, all of this stuff like exploded, but because of soon after that explosion, light started happening. And because of, so at the beginning, it's completely dark.
Darkness.
Darkness.
So it's a little bit hard to grasp, like nothing.
No,
right?
yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
like just,
That
Yeah,
side note,
exactly.
nothing. I once I read a whole book on the concept of nothing, and to be honest, the concept of like actual nothing is the hardest thing for me to grasp.
Yeah.
Because if I think
No.
about nothing, I think of like black, but like black is
is-
also
Yeah, black is something.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
you can't really imagine nothing.
wow,
Yeah.
crazy.
And
Yeah.
the crazy part about it too is like when you think about the beginning of the universe, that's what started. Like there was no time before.
There was
Yeah,
zero,
well,
nothing.
we don't know that. We don't know if so. This is like getting into like the fringe
I'm ready.
stuff.
I'm
the
This is
ready.
my
fringe
favorite stuff. This
Yeah,
is my favorite
yeah.
stuff.
So we don't know if the Big Bang just literally started out of nothing, or like maybe two universes collided and made the
Wow.
big. Like
Yeah.
there's all kinds of things that could have sparked our universe.
If you have a feeling on it, like what would be your feeling of like was it like how like was it two universes? 'Cause I know there's like a lot of competing theories.
Yeah,
with that. Like
yeah.
Everyone can agree on the Big Bang,
right,
and then
right. But
the
what's
discord
before
comes.
that?
What
Is
comes
two
before?
universes a popular theory, like compared to nothingness?
I don't. I think it is. I
Mm.
think compared to nothingness, it is.
Okay.
Because it's easier, and so again, I think it's easier for us to comprehend the fact that there was
Right.
something before it than it is to comprehend nothing.
That's the exact because that's like the hardest
Yeah,
thing you have
yeah,
to get
'cause-
over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like how does that
Yeah.
even how does something come from nothing?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like
Jeez.
yeah.
so back to this gravitational wave baby picture.
Yeah. So, the Big Bang happened, and then after the Big Bang, there's light happened.
Uh-huh.
So, because of all of the light that happened, we can't actually see the Big Bang through light. Does
Because
that make sense?
because
Like,
for a period of time there was no light.
yeah, there's no light, and then whatever little bit of light
Oh,
there
got
was,
you.
it gets stuck in like when the big like bunch of light happens.
Uh-huh.
Does that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it gets caught up with all the other lights.
Yeah. Exactly. But gravitational waves aren't affected by anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like once it happens, it just keeps on going.
Got
So one day when our gravitational wave detectors
Mm-hmm.
are advanced enough, we will be able to see a picture of the Big Bang because of the gravitational waves it created.
It's the relationship between time and things moving and how we can see them in the future or
That-
the past. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It blows my
Yeah.
mind because isn't the light that excuse my like non-existence knowledge of
Yeah, yeah,
science, like the light that we're seeing is old light. Like it's
Yes.
not, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See that trips me out because like how are we seeing this?
Yeah, yeah.
It's from the past. It's from the past.
That's I think that was like when I started reading about this stuff and getting into it. That was one of the biggest hurdles I had to get over because
it's so hard.
because going through
Yeah.
your like regular everyday life, time
you
is a
don't-
thing,
yeah.
and it's
That's happening
there
now. you
and
know?
and it's like it doesn't change. You look at a clock, 5 minutes will pass, and then that's 5 minutes is there.
Yeah.
And then the more you start learning, you're like, wow, time might not even exist. Like,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
like these crazy concepts of like looking when you look at the stars, you're looking back
Mm-hmm.
in history. So when you what type of telescopes are you using? Are you using optical telescopes or
Yeah, so I use optical telescopes. And the big difference is that they're huge. They're probably like I think the Keck telescope, which is the one I use, it's in Hawaii. It's probably bigger than this room.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
we all look around? How big is this room?
So it's I can't remember the exact dimensions, and my advisor would be very mad at me right now.
She's listening like
No,
Don't listen to
shakes
this.
my head.
yeah, it's like you. So it's made of most telescopes that like you can buy at home. It's just the one kind of primary mirror. The big telescopes that are often used now, it's a bunch of mirrors all put together. So, and the neat thing about that is the mirrors can move individually so that you can collect the light in the way that's going to be best work for the data that you want to get out
Oh
of it.
wow! So it's a whole bunch of mini mirrors
Yeah,
moving independently,
yeah.
trying to get the.
Yeah. And the mirrors. So the other bananas thing is that these mirrors, there's a ton of them. They move to correct for the atmosphere.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
loving this.
Oh my gosh. That part's
Yeah.
that part's that
So
part's crazy.
how does the atmosphere affect what you're seeing? Like, why do they have to do that?
Yeah. So because as the light is passing through the atmosphere, different wavelengths of the light are going to bounce off the different particles in the atmosphere in different ways.
Is the atmosphere just gas? Like, is it just gas, or what is the atmosphere?
It's basically just different kinds of gas.
Got it,
There's some like dust particles and whatever in there
Right.
too, but you can pretty much just think of it as a gas. But even in the gas, like the light will bounce off the individual atoms and stuff.
Right.
And so as it's bouncing off of that, so you know when you look at stars and they look like they're twinkling,
Yeah.
that's the
It's the atmosphere.
yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
There are a few stars. There's a type of star called a variable star.
Yes.
And these stars literally, some of them will literally like expand and contract. Like their physical size expands, it gets too big.
They're
and it
actual. This is not
contracts.
just an optical illusion.
No,
the actual
yeah,
size.
like they physically
Oh, okay.
expand and contract.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and some
By
of
a
them,
lot or like
enough that if you there's a couple Vega is one of the most famous ones. It's a bright star. If you look at it long enough, you can see it like expand.
Really?
and contract. You can see it like change just a little bit.
Do you need like a telescope to see that, or can you see it like?
You can probably do it. Yeah, if you have like amazing vision and it's pitch black,
Yeah.
you can probably do it. But binoculars would be all you would
wow.
need. Yeah, and that one, its period is like 3 or 4 hours. So if you can look at it and then like 4 hours later look at it again, and it's gonna be a little bit different.
Wow.
I never knew that either.
I'm gonna try to stop saying didn't know that because I don't know a lot of these things.
We're at the point where we've reached the limit of our knowledge. So like this after this point in the podcast is all going to be new. So so you study the. It's interesting too because like a lot of like when I think of astronomy, I think of like stars.
Yeah.
But you're studying actually whole galaxies,
Yeah.
which is crazy to me. So
I do think of like individual like groups of stars, but think of
I'm
the whole-
studying like billions, a group of billions of stars.
my favorite thing, if you ever go to the Griffith Observatory, and this is like my favorite thing about like, I think science in general is they have this thing, the big picture. It's downstairs, and if you go up to it, and it's like it's like the size of a dime. They took the size of a dime, they pointed the Hubble telescope at a pitch black point in the sky, and they like left it on for like I want to say like a week or something, a long time.
Yeah.
And then you see all these little spots of light, and the craziest part to me is like it just looks like stars, which is like it's cool, but they're all galaxies.
Yeah, every single one.
It's chills.
What's crazy is like we look at this like the sky and we see stars, and that's in our own galaxy and stuff. But then there's other galaxies out there, and so that's what you're studying.
Yes.
And so what is it what is it about their like life? What do you hope to know about their life cycle, and like what type of information are you learning?
Yeah, so we're learning about how they stop forming stars. Like the Milky Way, like our galaxy.
Oh, it's like full?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
wow.
at some point. So stars are made out of like gas and dust, right? And most galaxies will have, like, if you see pictures where it kind of they look super fuzzy, like if you ever see a drawing of the Milky Way, it's like super fuzzy. So that's a lot of that is the intergalactic like medium, but it's like dust and gas and stuff like this, and that's what the stars are formed out of. But we also see a lot of galaxies that have none of that. Like they literally have used up all of the gas and dust around them to create stars, and now they're just hanging out and like waiting to die, basically.
So once that gas goes away, that's kind of like the end of a galaxy. Then
then it's just like they're all grown up, and now their stars are gonna start dying, and
it's almost like a human life cycle. Like you have like
It's like
to a baby
over the hump.
Yeah. And then just
Years
And
over the
then-
hump.
yeah,
How
it's
long-
all downhill.
like I feel like it takes a long, because I know stars have a specific life cycle. And
Yeah.
stars' life cycle are obviously smaller than galaxies' life
Yeah.
cycle. How long is like a typical? Do we know how long a typical galaxy life cycle is?
Yes, more or less. So we know it's like billions and billions of years old.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
There must be like only a small amount of. How many galaxies do we know that have died? Is there a lot?
There are. Yeah, and this is why we're studying, because there are a lot. So in one of the things we think like. So the Big Bang happened, stars and galaxies started forming, and then this other thing happened. It's called reionization, It's this whole thing. But yeah, so reionization is when
Is it reionization?
reionization.
Oh,
Reionization.
Yeah. So
Got
like
it.
an ion, in chemistry, it's that basic idea, but things reionized in the universe.
Do they know why that happened?
And then
No. And that's like part of what we're studying is like,
Got it.
we don't know a lot about like the Big Bang and why reionization happened and all this kind of stuff. But we do know that there were galaxies that formed before that.
Where on the time span of the universe?
It's like
there's Big
it's
Bang.
like
Where is there
within,
reionization?
5 seconds after. Not
Oh, so-
not really. So if we're talking about like if we take the entire lifespan of the universe from the Big Bang to today
Yeah.
and put it in like a 24-hour clock, it's maybe like 5 or 10 minutes into the day.
Got it.
Yeah, like it's pretty quick.
So we know that stars have life cycles, and they get smaller, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they implode on themselves. Is that correct, or is that?
Some of them do, and some of them explode.
Oh, so then like what happens when a galaxy dies? Like what cycles does it go through, and how does it?
So
Yeah.
we think that most of them, like their stars are gonna die, and the gravity, if it doesn't have anything, the gravity contained within the galaxy. If the stars are all gone, so most stars, even when they explode, there's some core left over. So the gravity is just gonna keep what it has, and there may just be some galaxy out there that like is not emitting any more light, but it has all of these little dead remnants around it.
Ooh.
Yeah, but a lot of not a lot of stars, some of the biggest stars, when they explode, so they explode and then like the core collapses and it becomes a black hole.
I was like, I know where this is going.
Yes,
I know
saw
where this is
that.
going.
He
I was like,
he
oh yes,
ready.
here we go.
Man.
So is it true? So wait, sorry, was that?
Oh, yeah. So some of them will just kind of be out all by themselves, but then there's this other thing where galaxies kind of attract each other. And so like the Milky Way, we have satellite galaxies. So they're these little galaxies
like
that are
moons or something.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So galaxies are like rotating around each other.
Yeah, rotating around each other. And then there's also the galaxies that merge together.
Ooh, I've seen videos of like galaxies
Right?
colliding with each other.
Yeah.
So when oh gosh, is it true? Because this is now just general galaxy. It's usually at the middle of a galaxy. Is this a for sure thing? Because when I was reading about it, I didn't know if they knew for sure.
We're pretty sure that there's a black hole at the center of every galaxy.
Is it like a super black hole, or is it just like a regular black hole?
I think most of them have like the supermassive black holes, but there's a lot of little tiny galaxies that we literally like. We know it's a galaxy through different measurements, but we maybe see like 100 stars.
So like smaller.
Yeah, and so we're not sure if those have the black hole at the middle, or like maybe it's a black hole, but it's not supermassive, or
It's just like a
something
regular
that.
black hole.
Just
Just one of those.
just zooming out a little bit. How are galaxies grouped together? Like what constitutes a galaxy? Like this?
Yeah, so it's definitely like this collection of stars, but we call it a galaxy based on the velocities that we see those stars moving at.
Wow.
I
didn't know that either.
Of course I didn't know that.
I know. Okay, we'll just stop it. I'd be conscious of that.
Right.
Yeah, so in some of the bigger galaxies, it's obvious. Like you can literally look at a picture and see like spirals in it, and you're like, well, that's a galaxy. Great. But then when you get down to these smaller levels, there's things called star clusters, and that's kind of like, it's just a cluster
It's like
of
a group
stars.
of stars
Yeah,
hanging
just
out.
chilling.
Got it.
But then there's also galaxies that are the same size, but you see these differences in the velocities of their stars, and so you know that the galaxy has a dark we're getting into it, has a dark matter halo around it.
Chill.
And that's kind of the big difference. So you can have two groups of stars that are the same mass, but one is going to have different velocities because of the dark matter halo.
And so, are the velocities of those
so
stars
cool.
going? Are the velocity of those stars going around the galaxy or the center?
Yeah.
What is that? What's causing that velocity? Is it what's in the middle of it, like the gravitational pull? What's in the middle?
Yeah. So that's the kind of idea, but also it was in the formation. So you kind of have to have like this circular thing to get, not to get gravity going, but it helps to have that orbiting stuff. And so once the stars form as they're orbiting. It just kind of stays that
So
way.
if the stars are moving, like it's already coming towards the center of the galaxy, and then it gets trapped in, and then
Yeah.
that adds to the velocity. We were just talking
Talking
about
about the slingshot, like all science movies.
every space
Yeah,
movie. It's
yeah,
like
they
we're
lo-
stuck in space. We're gonna slingshot around the moon.
every time.
It'll increase
it's
our velocity.
It's a real thing.
That is a real thing.
Yeah, that's what they've done with every space mission. It saves gas
Wow.
to slingshot.
I just watched Apollo 13, and yeah, I know a lot of people were telling me like you have to watch this
Math
movie.
on
Yeah.
the windows.
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that's what they used to get home too,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah,
used
yeah, yeah.
the slingshot around the moon to get back home.
Just going back to black holes.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, what is a black hole? What's a super black hole? And why are they? Can't they like hurt us? Are they in the middle of the?
Are they dangerous?
Are they dangerous? Like they're in the middle, or you know,
It reminds me of
Yeah.
Super Predator,
Yeah.
a super black hole.
black hole. Like, oh,
Okay, so we almost don't know what a black hole is.
comforting.
Right, right.
It's nice.
We know that we know that what it was, so it was a star. But we know that it also just eats everything. Like there's so much gravity that it just sucks things in, and we don't really know. There's theories about what's happening in the middle. So the kind of leading theory, and it's this kind of buzzword, but it's a singularity.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Every movie,
Right, right.
Singularity.
So yeah, there's that singularity, and that's like kind of our way of saying like there's the stuff that happens in the middle of a black hole that we don't really know. But black holes have so much gravity that light can't even escape it, and that's why it's called a black hole, because we don't actually see the thing that
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, we don't see that.
And then is a singularity caused because the gravitational pressure is so much that it pushes everything down to like
Yeah.
pushes everything down to like one point where it's just
Oh,
is that what the singularity
yeah.
is?
Yeah.
like a period, like just in the. Like,
yeah.
Like it's
this is the end
Yeah.
of the sentence.
That's it. Yep. And then but to answer your question about like the Milky Way and it could eat us, there's also these things. So because of all of this like crazy exotic physics that happens around black holes, there's jets that can come out of black holes. So not everything that gets near a black hole falls into the black hole.
Ooh.
There's an accretion disk, and that's actually what we see is like there's like a disk of stuff that's falling into the black hole. Yeah, we see that, but we can also see stuff coming out of it, and it's just kind of like if you're coming in a certain way, you get pushed out.
Oh, so it all depends on like how.
Oh, from which?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Because
then
when you see them, like in my head, they look like 2D, but I didn't think that other things were coming in
yeah,
from all sides,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
got it.
basically, yeah. And then also like the way kind of gravity and orbits work, like it takes a really, really long time for anything to like, or for most things to like fall into each other. Like at some point, the Earth and the Moon will like probably fall into each other again. But it's so far away that we don't have to worry about it.
That's what I was wondering too. Now, so like now, like we're talking about like gravity and being around it, like and being around like a black hole pulls everything closer.
Yeah.
Right. So why doesn't like gravity, like why is it that we're rotating around the sun and we don't get like pulled into this? Like you said, we eventually will.
Yeah, so we probably eventually can because they're not like perfect orbits. But so the way that I think about it, and it's in math terms, but it's literally like there's a certain position that you can be in, and you just get kind of stuck there.
Oh wow.
So like all of the satellites that like all of the communication satellites that give us internet and all this fancy stuff, we put them in what we call a geosynchronous orbit. So that yes.
Geosynchronous orbit.
My new mixtape.
So they sit at this specific, like super specific height above sea level. And you can put it there, and it stays there because of like
get pulled into the earth or
it won't
anything.
get pulled into the earth. It doesn't need gas to keep going. It just like sits and
So
like
nice.
as
We are
Earth.
so smart. Like, that's amazing.
That's pretty crazy. It reminds me of those things, you know, at the mall where you put like a penny in and it spins around for a really long time and eventually falls into that.
Yeah,
I sort of like you said, like the moon will eventually hit the Earth.
Yeah.
That's where it would just take a really long time to
Yes.
spin around, and then
Long
eventually hit.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit.
Dude, I was thinking about switching gears just now.
Go ahead. Hey, take it away. Take it away.
I just want to get back to like in your experience studying astronomy. I know that advocating for like minorities and women, especially in the field, is really big. Why? I mean, obviously there's underrepresentation, but why is that so important to you? And like, how did you get into that mindset of like advocating and doing those things?
Yeah. So it's important to me because there's just no reason for there to be like anyone can do astronomy, anyone can do science. And so there's literally no good reason why the demographics of astronomers doesn't match the demographics of like in this country, the country. Like, yeah. So, and kind of like as I got more into, and I actually didn't care about representation. Like there's no representation is off in like acting, you know, obviously. It's off when I was in the military, like,
I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I feel like it's extreme there.
Yeah. And then, but I didn't really care about it in those places. And then when I got into astronomy, and like I love it. Like I love every day of my life. It's really hard. I got like 3 hours of sleep last night.
Running on.
Thank you for
getting to the show.
But I enjoy what I'm doing, and like so it's become really important to me because I want everyone to have an opportunity to do this really awesome thing. And a lot of the reason that they don't have the opportunity is just because they don't know. And like the people who have done astronomy in the past didn't do a good job of discussing it and like giving it to everybody. So
just like we were talking about earlier, how like we like a lot of these jobs, like scientific researcher.
Yeah.
You didn't know that was like a type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's I think we were watching the Oscars. We were talking about this. It's weird how like women are always talked about as a minority. Like,
we're not.
I'm pretty sure women are the majority in the world. Like I'm pretty sure women. But it's weird. We always talk about women. Like and in different spaces they are obviously. But they're a majority group. Like the biggest majority in the world.
Like numbers wise, straight up. Like
if we're talking numbers.
Yeah.
So I think that's crazy, and I think it's so. Was it once you started getting to you were in college and then you started getting into the PhD program? You were like, then as the classroom started getting more specific, were you looking around being like,
it's all dudes.
well, I'm the only girl.
That's happened a number of times.
Yeah. Was that ever a challenge to you, do you think?
Yes. So for me, like, again, Long Beach is an amazing university. The physics department there is fantastic, and the same with Irvine. But what I encountered a lot is I would be the only girl in a group, and a guy would say something to me, and I'm like, is that sexist, or are you just kind of a jackass? Like, I don't really know.
That's really fun. I don't know if
and so you don't like. I've found that it's really hard for me to, because I don't want to just be like, you're a sexist and you're a sexist, and, you know, like that's not what I'm about. But I also don't want to just say like, oh, he's just kind of a jackass, but really he's a sexist.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's hard to, and especially like in physics where you're learning all the time and you have to be vulnerable because you think this is the right way and you were just completely off.
Yeah. So you have to be willing to be wrong.
Yeah, you have to be willing to be wrong. And so kind of I think a lot of people, you know, in like high school and stuff, if you're like smart, it's like you're the smart one and you can never do anything
put up
wrong.
Yeah.
And then like as you get into your major, you realize that you're just as smart as everyone else. And so you have to like, it's this like personal journey of figuring out that you have to be vulnerable and you have to be okay to fail all the time. So in that, there's going to be a lot of conflict amongst people. And so I wasn't going to like call someone out for being a sexist if they were just struggling with the fact that like they don't know something.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a hard line to walk too, because it's like, I don't know where I was going with that.
It's a hard line. You don't want to call someone out when they're just thinking about something else, or they're not saying it to you in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because if they say something to me one way and they say it to a guy the same way, then they're not being like they don't have to treat me differently because I'm a woman. I just want to make sure that they're not treating me differently because I'm a woman.
Exactly.
Like I think this is kind of goes along with that, but like I have a weird thing about opening doors for girls now. Like because I it's such like a you're trying to be like you're supposed to open the door for a woman. You know what I mean? Like that's like a thing that I've been taught. Like my dad told me that like you always open. But like at the same time, like I understand that and it's like a cultural thing. But I also don't want like you to think I have to open the door for you. And I'm doing it because you're a woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't do anything anymore.
Like I want
It's
that's always like a weird thing for me too. But so I think it's interesting too because you have like this. I talk about like I've talked to people about double minorities, like quote unquote double minorities. So you're like a woman underrepresented.
Yeah.
You're also a minority racial group that's underrepresented.
Yeah.
And like education wise, aren't you like under like?
I'm like an untraditional student.
Yeah, exactly. So like all these things, like it's almost like it's almost like you have to be in this position where you advocate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's true, and I think to add on that, because I've been fortunate or privileged or whatever you want to call it, to not have to deal with a lot of like sexism or really even racism. I haven't dealt with a lot of racism in STEM specifically, and so I feel like I do have a responsibility to take this extra emotional energy that I haven't had to spend on like combating those things and help other people that do have to deal with it like on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's nice that you haven't had to like. It's not something you don't face it like all the time. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But you still see enough to know
Yeah.
to advocate and like
Yeah.
let other people know that this is what's up with astronomy.
Does it ever affect you like when you're like in these like spaces where it's like all men or it's all like a certain race? I don't know what type of race it is in you know the field you're in now. But does that affect you? Know what I mean? Do you feel like, oh, I'm the only person like this here? Like does that ever affect you, or is it more like that doesn't really bother you?
It kind of affected me. So being a woman amongst all men, because I was in the Army, I was like, whatever.
Oh, so
this is normal.
Going through this the whole time.
Yeah. I got it. But yeah, there was like growing up. So I grew up in Riverside, which is pretty diverse, and then in Hacienda Heights, which is like super diverse.
Yeah.
And the Army is actually pretty diverse just because you get more people from like lower socioeconomic status going to the military. And that tends to be more diverse as well. But in astronomy, it's like a bunch of old white dudes.
Oh,
like,
really?
Like
Yeah.
straight up.
Yeah.
It's like it's mostly white guys. And it's almost more on a cultural level that I'm like, I don't know how to act around these people. Like,
no,
I
definitely know what you're talking about. As I like my own experience, like when I was a McNair scholar. Me and Katy also took a class together for a brief period of time.
We sure did.
Yeah, we had it was a GRE class.
Yeah, like the GRE prep class.
Yeah, which was pretty cool. I don't think many people would say they took a class with their aunt before, so that was pretty cool. But like as I started getting up and like meeting more people and like as I moved up in education and in like places in life, I was like, as each time I moved up, I was like, oh, there's a lot less of me and because I didn't notice it before, because like in spaces I was before, everyone looked like me or not looked like me, was more diverse. Like I was used to seeing people of every color.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden you get into these more specific fields and it's like, there's a lot less of us going around here. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Go ahead.
Something I actually was looking at your Instagram, and I know that like being a nerd or nerd culture is like really big to you, and I just want to know why you identify with that and like how that came about, or what do you feel like constitutes a nerd per se, if that makes
sense. So I think now like or these days a nerd is just like if you don't care about other people's opinions and you're going to be passionate about what you're passionate about and like go for it. And I think that's great. But I think part of the reason I like identify so much with nerd culture is because like I am one.
I'm one of them.
I'm one of them. But literally like growing up, I had giant glasses. I'm the clumsiest.
I remember those.
Oh my gosh. I was a hot mess as a child. and I was made fun of a lot because of it. And it's like you.
But now it's cool. Like
yeah, and you see it in all the movies where like the nerds become like the powerful
The
ones.
nerds win. The nerds come up and take over.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of that where I'm like, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm doing
gonna take your
things.
job.
Yeah.
everyone knows now that I'm on top. Like,
Yeah, I got it. You made fun of me, but look.
Watch, just wait.
So yeah, there is a little bit of that, but I like the fact that there is this kind of cultural movement in the country towards like and being okay with who you are, and even if that is so. My husband and I are rewatching Family Matters, all of Family Matters.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, starting from like the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I
Sounds like a
know.
journey.
I know. We're in it. And so watching it again and watching Steve Urkel, I'm like, oh, this show is actually fantastic because he is this super clumsy, like he gets in his own way, he gets in everybody else's way, but he's so sincere to who he is and proud of who he is that it's like, it doesn't matter. And I think that's part of what like the like nerd culture that I love, that it's just like, don't worry about other people and do you.
he also has his alter ego.
Stefan.
Stefan Urkel.
I know.
Wow.
We talk about this all the time, and like we're huge fans of the internet, and like I that's something you
Wait,
see.
like the group
No,
or like the internet?
internet.
Both.
Okay.
Oh, we're big fans of the
okay,
internet
okay,
as well.
okay.
But like, that's something like when like my mom was growing up and stuff. It was only like popular things like TV. That's all
Oh
you
yeah,
took.
that was it.
Then all of a sudden the internet came about, and all these like niche groups
Yeah.
Little
Yes.
pockets that everyone could associate themselves in or with, right?
were able to come up, and now like it's like people say it all the time, like it's cool to be a nerd.
Yeah.
Like that's and that wasn't a thing like growing up. Nerd
Yeah,
was like a
that-
bad
you were like,
word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
now it's like how in the gay community they took the word queer back.
Yes.
And they like made that an empowering word.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing you see with nerd. Like nerd used to be like a bad word.
Yeah.
Now the nerds came back and they're like, nope,
Yeah.
we're nerds and this is
Yeah.
cool, which I think is
Yeah.
I
That is
love
really
that.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
A couple more things I wanted to ask. So this has been a reoccurring thing on this show. I'm out to attack and take down all believers in astrology. So
Again, astrology.
I don't have any enemies except astrology.
Astrologers?
Yeah. So how do you feel as an astronomer? How do you feel about astrology?
So
Do you follow it first of all?
no.
Okay. Cool.
No.
All right.
Don't ever.
I-
Good.
Don't ever
yeah,
ask
yeah.
that.
I will occasionally like read a horoscope just
They're
because
fun.
I'm like,
They-
let's see. Let's see.
They could be fun. They
yeah.
could be fun.
And
You entertain me.
usually I walk away from it and I'm like, that's so vague. Like anyone that could
Yeah.
applies to everybody. I don't really look, if people want to look up at the stars and be like, I'm like this person, then whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I
As long as they're not, so I don't like it when there are some people, and I've met people that are like, well, the motion of the universe is going to infect my personality. And I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh.
you need to step away.
the one that gets me is the retrograde thing. Have you?
Wait. I never understood what retrograde was.
Also, I don't know
I
in
don't know
general
what that
what is retrograde.
So it's the way we see like Mars moving. Basically, Mars is always moving like this,
Oh,
right?
got it,
But there's certain geometries where where Mars is and where we are, that it kind of looks like it's moving backwards in the sky. It's not
Mars is
actually
in retrograde.
Yeah, it's not actually moving backwards. It's just like a coincidence.
That makes me so much more mad at this whole retrograde thing, then, because then it's actually Mars isn't doing anything.
Don't
Yeah,
deny the
no, it's
energies,
just-
bro.
it's just
Don't deny the
still-
energy.
Because people
Do it.
say Mars is in retrograde,
Yeah.
and I actually thought it was an actual thing that Mars did,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's
it's
actually
just
just
what
how
we
we're
see,
viewing it.
yeah.
So nothing's changing about Mars.
Yeah,
no gravitational forces are changing.
Yeah,
That-
no.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, Dominic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I just wanted to get an astronomer's viewpoint on astrology because I'm trying to slowly, step by step, take down the institution of astrology because I hate it.
Wait, why do you hate it so much?
I just don't like it because it's like people try to judge like their lives and yeah, that's such a Taurus thing to say. Or
Oh,
like
okay.
or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
or like we
yeah.
don't
Yeah, yeah,
match because like our signs
We
don't
can't-
match.
we can't
But
date.
like, yes and no. Like, if they enjoy it, if it helps them in a way, like
But people really get into it, and it has.
I understand to a fault. Yes, that can happen.
It doesn't. It's not. Nothing of that has any reality to the real world. Like the stars don't have any effect on personality traits, and that's the thing that like people are persistent with it and look it up and like I'm a Taurus.
You're
so I feel
you're
this way.
rising in your setting. Stuff.
I just have like a big beef.
They get legit.
Where were you born? What time?
Yeah.
That type of stuff. Like one of my like things I want to know is like what is like the biggest thing, like why? Because there's some things that I feel in science in general that I find so much comfort in, and like I really like I love certain aspects of science.
Yeah.
Is there something about like astronomy or science that like is like what pulled you in, and like this is like the core reason like why I like this? Like Star Trek was kind of culturally how you got it into you.
Yeah.
But now like you study it, is there something that like I love this about science?
Yeah. So I love solving all of the little tiny puzzles. Like it's literally sometimes it feels like a Zelda game just all day.
Zelda
All day, every day.
I'm playing Zelda with the stars.
But yeah, like so I do a lot of coding in my research, and I'm like building this stuff from scratch.
What language?
Python.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
did you hiss on the mic?
But yeah, so I like, because I love puzzles and I love games, and they're really like it's like I like that challenge, that mental challenge. But even with like I love the new Zelda, but I get bored of it because I'm like, what's the point of it? Like, great, I'm gonna win this game.
Right.
Not solving any of life's mysteries. in
Yeah,
Zelda.
like I'm not building anything or doing anything with it. And so part of what drew me into astronomy was just that like I can go and get lost in these numbers and this coding and all this kind of stuff and be passionate about it and in it, and I'm like actually building something.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people think about like science as like studying something, and the artist as like creating things.
Oh yeah.
But what you're saying is like the exact opposite. You're creating things that you're like proud of.
Yeah.
Well, that's just
Definitely.
And a lot of like kind of with the government, I guess they're not funding things like they were with research and stuff. But obviously, research is important to like find out new stuff.
Yeah.
But like, why do you think they would be cutting that? And do they not see the value in research? Like, where do you see what's your stance on research and why it's important?
Yeah, so definitely like what you were saying, I think there's all kinds of stuff that we can't a lot of the biggest advances in technology don't come from us trying to solve a problem.
Right.
by mistake.
Yeah, literally. So like my favorite story is with GPS, which is like kind of the basis for, our lives.
Yeah,
essentially.
everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. So there's a bunch of like astronomers and engineers that were watching Sputnik, the first satellite, as it took off. And so Sputnik did these little beeps so that we could tell where it was. And they were listening to these, just sitting like listening to the beeps.
No way.
Yeah,
and
and
they're like, they loved it. Like, beep.
Yeah, no.
Just
literally,
fire.
And literally they went, oh, if we can tell where it is because of the beeps, I bet we can reverse engineer it. And so they reverse engineered that just for shits and giggles.
Just because?
Just because.
Like,
Just because they were like,
funny.
let's do this.
Let's have Sputnik tell where we are.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be fun.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
Sputnik.
and we have GPS
Thank
Oh,
you,
wow.
Sputnik.
because a bunch of nerds.
Thank you, Soviet Russia.
That's really interesting. So it's like they don't plan on these things happening.
Yeah, a lot. And I mean, some of it is like it comes out of us trying to build better, telescopes or better whatever detectors. And it ends up being like the MRI machines that have saved millions of lives.
I saw a video about this.
Yeah.
It was like originally the NMRI, the nuclear or something.
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
right?
And it was literally like, we need to do this science a little better. Let's create this thing. And then somebody else was like, oh, we can use that. We're going to take that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
really cool.
Right. So it's like it's advancing technology and like society in a way that you can't do if you're just trying to solve problems.
It's not like a big like, oh, they did this. It's kind of like it's like a
It'll lead us to something.
Yeah, it'll yeah.
Yes.
Because I know even like a lot of things that like when in studying stars, they found out a lot of things that apply to our everyday life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Helium, we had no idea what helium was until we started studying the sun.
Oh wow. I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I did not know
Right?
that.
You wouldn't have
Yeah.
any parties without the sun. Sorry.
no more. No more balloons on your birthday.
Right.
So kind of going along with that question, I feel like a lot of everyday people, they don't see a use for, like, you don't bump into, I mean, you do, but you don't bump into astronomy in
Yeah.
your everyday life.
Yeah.
So for someone who has no interest in astronomy or anything like that, like why would you say it's important to at least like have some general understanding, and like why would they not need to, but what not benefit, but like why is it important for other people to know about astronomy, would you say?
So I think the biggest reason is just perspective. So like with the internet, we feel like we're connected to everybody on Earth, which is trash, but like,
It's trash.
You feel like it. You're like, oh, I know these people in Africa. Like I remember growing up and my mom saying like you have to eat everything on your plate because there's like kids starving in Africa.
Yeah,
you
always
know?
heard
You
that.
know?
Yeah.
Always heard that.
Racist.
Yeah. Wow, I never thought about that.
Right?
Wow, I never thought about that like that.
Well,
Could be starving anywhere, man.
I know.
Like,
Why is it
Right?
gotta be
Why-
Africa?
Yeah,
Well, that's very.
right?
That's very true.
Right. But now we're like, well, I can go donate. I can donate to a GoFundMe for kids in Africa so I don't have to eat this food. Like there's all of these reasons that you're like, I can disconnect. I'm connected to everybody in the world, so my problems matter. But if you think about the scope of the universe, you don't matter. Like
At all.
like all of your stupid little problems, like my shoulder hurts because I slept on it wrong. Like it doesn't matter. Like there is an entire universe. There could be millions of other types of life forms out there that we don't even know about. So stop crying that like your shoe broke or whatever.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me because I think a lot of people can hear that as like you don't matter, as almost like take it the opposite way. But but one of my favorite things about science too is when like going back to that the big picture thing.
Yeah.
Is like it's weird that such a feeling of insignificance can give me such a feeling of significance. You know what I mean?
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
liberating, kind of. You know,
Yeah.
it frees you from like all these things that you might think are bogging down your life.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter.
It takes you out of that, and then it makes you like, wow, this really is not important. And then once you come back down to that, you're like, are so much more appreciative for like the things you do have. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
Yeah.
wow, out of all, like you're saying like, yes, I don't matter, which is like, yes, it's true, and like it's
Right,
your
yeah.
big picture. But then you're like, wow, I'm actually so lucky.
Yeah.
To be alive right now, like 'cause
Yeah.
to have these experiences too.
Yes.
So that insignificance, to me, like my favorite part about science is learning how much I don't matter, and then like being like, wow, I matter so much at the end of the day.
Exactly.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
to spread the knowledge of astronomy and everything like that, where can people find you? Where
What's
can
the plug? What's the Instagram
Oh,
plug?
wait.
That's
Side
the
note:
plug.
what can people do? Like regular non-astronomy studying people, like if they did want to learn more about the stars and astronomy.
Yeah.
What resources can you recommend online?
Yeah.
Like just Googling, or what do you say?
So Googling is good. I think some great places to start are on YouTube. So there's
Love to the tube.
Yeah.
Big YouTube advocate over here.
there's a channel called Minute Physics.
Ooh.
And so a lot of it is physics, but they're super intertwined. So there's a lot that are astronomy too. But they explain it so well and in these really short videos so that you can like just grasp it right away. Like I literally used to use them to study sometimes.
Yeah, that's nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Stamp of approval.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's SciShow Space, which is a little more like, let's talk about what's going on. Like we're going to shoot off this telescope or we're doing this mission, you know? So it's a little more topical instead of like, let's learn things. TED Ed is also actually amazing.
I like TED Ed.
Amazing. And yeah, so TED Ed, Minute Physics. Oh, and there's one. So this is more of like a blog, but it's called Hyperphysics. It's hosted by I think Georgia State University. But if you just Google Hyperphysics, they take pretty much any concept in physics and astronomy and boil it down to these really, really simple things that like it's created for undergraduates.
Nice.
So it's created for like super introductory things, and it's totally legit. So those are like good places to start. But yeah, if you Google and go to any like .edu or .gov, you're good.
Cool.
Yeah.
The .edu.gov stamp of approval.
Yes.
And where can people find you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the little plug.
The plug. Instagram
time.
plug.
Right. So I'm on Instagram more than anything, and that's at Astronomouse.
Ooh, Astronomouse.
Got it.
Yes.
Spell it phonetically, right?
Yeah.
Astronomy.
Yeah,
I was gonna spell it out, but then I was like, I can't spell
That's,
that.
that's hard. So Instagram, Facebook, I have like a scientist page, so you can like follow that.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I do like the updates and whatever, and it's the same Astronomouse. And then I'm on Twitter sometimes. Twitter, people complain a lot.
Yeah. Twitter is I like Instagram the most.
Yeah,
I feel at home on Instagram.
Yeah, same.
Perfect.
Anything else you want to let the people know before we sign off on this episode?
I don't think so. Be curious. Look up at the stars sometimes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you for listening to this episode of Peer Pressure. It was great having you on, Katie. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
I know you only got 3 hours of sleep, so thank you for
Yeah.
taking some
Sleep.
time out of your busy day.
I'm excited.
We're out of
All right.
here.
Peer pressure. Pressure. Peer pressure.